Hey Gun Pals, it has been about 30 days since I built my first model and started this YouTube channel. So seeing as we are about a month into it, I thought now would be a perfect time to build something I never thought I would build and to talk about 5 things that I learned, or more like realized, but that's not as good of a YouTube title. 5 things I learned during my first month of Gunpla. First, let's get this kit open up. We're building the SD Gundam X Standard Wing Gundam 0, something I would have never built even a week ago, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. All right, so the first thing that I learned is that all anyone wants to see is ASMR clipping sequences or rhythm clipping sequences. All right, for real, the first realization that I had is that Gunpla is more than just snapping plastic parts together. And I know that sounds really obvious, but this is how I thought when I first got into Gunpla. I thought that all it was snapping parts together. Everything that needed color would come colored. Anything that would need panel lining would come panel lined. That it was all like 100% done. All you were doing was putting it together. And so I'm happy that you can get really close to that experience, and it makes the hobby accessible to lots of different people. But I also am learning to appreciate and get interested in the fact that that's not where it stops, that you really can get into an almost infinite level of customization. All right, let's get these super deformed parts cleaned up here and ready for panel lining. And I'll talk about my second realization, which is this. You don't want to go chasing tools, you want to chase after technique. And for me, I don't watch a lot of Gunpla YouTube, but when I do, the problem is I see something cool and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. You must need this tool to do that. So now I got to go find this tool to do this thing. And so I've learned that chasing the tool really wastes a lot of time. It doesn't often make you any better, and a better use of your time is to actually learn the technique with whatever tools you have and then build up to maybe that tool that is super specialized. Also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like a lot of those tools that you see on YouTube videos are sold out on the websites that sell them. My third realization was that if you spend any amount of time with the parts, sanding them or painting them or doing any kind of custom work on them, you'll eventually get to know the back of your mobile suit's hand as well as you know the back of your own hand, which is a really long way of just saying you'll eventually become very familiar with the parts and they won't be so scary at first. And they probably were never scary to you. But to me, looking at the runners, it felt like a puzzle at the beginning. And I thought like, well, I just got to get this together and get this over with and make sure that I can get through it. And I heard a YouTuber early on say that they didn't really even organize their parts. They just cut them off the runner and started to go to work because they knew that those parts would pass through their hands so many times that they would eventually just kind of memorize them. And that kind of blew my mind when I heard that. But now I'm just starting to see the light of that, or just starting to realize how that becomes true. So when I looked at the picture of this SD winged Gundam, I thought the shield would come painted, and it didn't. It came white, which left me to pick stickers or painting or just leave it white. And another realization, this one doesn't count as part of the list, but I've really come to dislike stickers, and I would rather just paint something if I can, which I'm not good at all. But for this one, being that this was the 10th model, I decided to forego most of the stickers and try to paint this shield. And I know some of you are like, wait, didn't you just say that chasing the tools was bad, except for now I see that you're using a wet palette? And in my defense, I had that wet palette when I thought that I was going to paint Warhammer figures, but didn't. So really, this is an old tool seeing new life, which is a totally different realization. So my fourth realization, and it's another obvious one, is that the Gunpla boxes tell quite a story. When I first got into it, I thought there was basically just one line of product. I didn't know that there were different stories and different timelines and all that. And so I thought the dark box, the Universal Century box with the sort of goldish color where the number is. I thought that was the most modern, the newest kit, and those were the ones you wanted to get. And then anything that looked different than that was old or did bit like sat in a window and gotten faded or something like that. This is literally what I thought. And then you learn that no, there's different stories and there's different timelines and there's different shows, different model makers, different model overseers, there's different grades, that the box really tells you a lot of pretty vital information. All right, fifth and final point here. What I realized, probably the most important, is what the appeal of Gunpla is to me. And I think it's different for everyone. For some people, it's the story. For some people, it's the cool-looking mobile suits. And for some people, it's the art and the detail, the technique, and the craft. For me, it's really simple. Gunpla offers me a time of quiet logic, a break from having to make decisions where there doesn't seem to be a right or a wrong, or where there's an infinite amount of gray area. It offers me a time to just look at instructions and directions and follow them step by step. And these pieces of plastic that seem to be unconnected and disparate then slowly become this cool, amazing, fun thing that I can then make my own. All right, we're getting this SD guy assembled, which brings me to the last point of this video, and that is that I would have never built a super deformed model on my own. I didn't really get SD. I was like, I thought we're trying to build giant like robots, and now this one's sort of distorted and small and caricatured, and I just didn't understand the appeal of them. And then somebody in the community through a comment recommended that I check them out, and so I did, and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. It'd be fun to try it. And I think there's value in every type of kit that is out there. And I'm really glad that I tried the SD ones because they weren't at all what I thought. They were easier, I think, to put together than a lot of entry grades, but they have more detail, especially in the head area, than a lot of high grades, which puts them in this really neat area of not having a lot of parts. So customizing the entire thing isn't a daunting task. But a lot of those pieces are big enough and detailed enough where you can practice new techniques like panel lighting and adding custom plastic. So even if you don't love the way they look, they are a great affordable way to get into some plastic that you can practice your skills on. So thanks for watching. All I have is a few hero shots of the model and this song. Until next time.
Subs ago